Is this thin enough for you? I'll show you how I do it. So we got thin strips like this for some of your projects that are really thin. I'll show you how I do it. Or veneer, like that. And doing it without a drum sander, but on a planer. So I'll show you how I do that. And no double-sided tape or painter's tape with glue. So I'll show you. This is a simple thin rip jig that I made. It's real simple, basic. I fashioned some sort of handle to screw to a 2x4 to keep your hand up out of the way of the blade, which is over here. And this one is designed for cutting 1 inch, 3/4 to 1 inch wide thin strips. You don't want to go too much wider. You don't want your blade up near your hand. So this is just for a shorter or narrower thin strip jig. So I just took a 2x4, running it up in your table saw, and then run it up here, cut like 1/8 of an inch off with your blade, and then run that through your saw right towards the end here, and then stop. Don't go all the way through. Stop right about here. Take it off. Make a cut across here with a little hand saw. You can do it with a number of different ways. You know, you can lower your blade and run it through that way, and then do a cut off, and then chisel off the rest of it so it's nice and flush here. So what that does is that's going to give you a place when you're cutting, it slides up here, it catches it, and forces this through the saw. So what you do is, however thick you want it, bring it up here, even with that, lock down your fence, and then however wide you want it, readjust your fence to like 1/8 of an inch, or 1/16 even, but I think 1/8 of an inch. That right there, lock it down, and then you can push it through. So we'll give you a little demonstration here. We'll do it again. There's 0, so we'll go 1/8 of an inch. Right there. So that's how we get those thin strips, like 1/8 of an inch. So if we want these a little bit thinner than this, there's an easy way to do that, in which then you can have them all exactly the same width or thickness. So then you can have them all exactly the same thickness. So let's head over to the planer and I'll show you how we accomplish that. Okay, what I've got here is just a piece of 3/4 inch MDF melamine. It's got melamine on both sides. Pretty slick. Make sure it's kind of clean, nothing sticky on it. And then make sure it's long enough to support your work coming in and passing through. So what I'd like to do is set that on the planer. So then we put a clamp on there to just kind of hold everything in place to keep it from sliding. Okay, so on this planer, there's a little indicator down here, and there's a little button up underneath here. So I'll put my material under there and lower the deck, and you'll see this little guy move. So what I typically like to do is I'll just get it to where it's just barely moving, back it off just a little bit, back it off just a little bit, and lock down my knob. So then what we'll do is we'll start this up and we'll start running it through, and then slowly decrease the thickness each pass. So you can see on this side, it's actually, the board is protruding out this side of the planer so that it supports the work. And this is probably the more important side. You want to have a little bit more out, hanging out here. So, okay, so here we go. So we're getting pretty thin here. You can see, we'll keep going, see how thin we can go. Okay, I think that's about it. So that's about as thin as I can go. It ate the other one up. So I want to have my pieces just a little bit thinner than 1/16 of an inch. And that's to take up the kerf on my bandsaw. So when I'm weaving wood in there, it keeps all the figures straight. So it just makes up for the wood that I'm removing with the bandsaw. So we'll go over and put some calipers on this and see what we got. Okay, that looks like about 30 thousandths right there. That's pretty thin. In the previous one I did here, this one is about 43 thousandths. So you can get it pretty thin that way. Okay, to cut thin strips on my bandsaw, I've got a little jig here set up where I use the fence. Back this up a little bit. Use the fence. Ride my material against there, so I'll pull it back here. And then adjust my fence to the material is tight right here on this jig. And then adjust my fence. And then we'll run it through the saw and I'll get my thin strips. So we'll try to get one of those going here. Okay, so we'll run my fence up to the jig. Got this set about 1/8 of an inch off the blade. So how I did that is set that up on the blade there, take a measurement there, or put some marks on the side of your jig. Here, adjust it, tighten things down, bring it over here. Now I'll do this and we'll tighten down the fence. Then we'll move this out of the way. And then we'll start things up here. So we'll do another thin strip. Move our jig. Okay, so that's got a couple thin strips here, so we can run them over to planer here. And run these through the planer. So if you have like really figured wood, like maple or some really figured walnut, you'll get some tear out on there doing this. So just be aware of that. Get some pretty good grain, straight grain stuff. And if you feel you're getting some tear out, turn your piece around and run it through the other way, because it might be just running against the grain. So here we go. So there you go. That's how we get some thin strips, and make them thinner than we can on the saw, and then get nice smooth pieces where you can do a glue up right off your planer. If you have some nice sharp blades, you have a nice clean cut. Be able to glue right up to it. So, all right, good luck. Have fun with it. Is this thin enough for you?